Hello, and welcome to my presentation about motivation in the workplace. Motivation can simply be put as the factors that cause and sustain behaviors. Ways to treat your staff in order to achieve the highest levels of employee motivation is probably something you should think about if you're going to lead a kitchen. These can come from individual and environmental factors. A little bit of history about how people used to think about motivation come from the traditional method. This was the crediting approach, or giving something back to your workers. Also known as the scientific management method, this basically says that the more efficient the workers, the more that they get paid. In time, they found that this was probably not the best incentive. After a time, the better the people worked, the less jobs they had for people, and eventually they were forced to fire people. After a while, people started questioning this, and they demanded that they have job security. In the end, the whole thing was a mess. So, they went to a better approach called the human relation model. Now, when looking for a person who, in my mind, really can motivate his staff, I found Grant Ashetz, the chef of Alinea. As I was looking online, I came to this really great article in the New Yorker on their profiles page called A Man of Good Taste. There wasn't a specific incident where an employee or the chef had a problem. However, reading this article about him, I really learned what it takes to motivate a staff. Now, back to talking about the human relation model. If you think about working in a kitchen, you don't think about standing there all day. Boredom and repetitiveness reduce motivation. So, you always want to keep your employees learning new things. You think of an open kitchen, you get a little bit of social contact. This is a great way to help sustain motivation in your kitchen. I learned that a way Grant Ashetz achieved this was to have an open kitchen. It really gives interaction and the ability to see the clientele enjoying their food. Really motivates the workers. Grant Ashetz was diagnosed with stage 4 tongue cancer in his second year after opening Alinea. This can be devastating to a chef, and it really tried him as a chef. He really had to motivate and go back to his workers in order to be able to keep things running. A way to keep them motivated was through his trust. He trusted his employees to taste his food when he could not. He really showed them that he valued them as employees and respected their opinions. It was really important to him and to the success of Alinea that they stay motivated and that he had somebody that he could look to. Another thing that happened to him when he was faced with cancer was that he was not always able to come into work. Even though he was feeling ill, he often did come into work because he looked at them as his family, something bigger for them to belong to. They really were a family in the kitchen, and this was a really great way to treat and to motivate his staff. Under the human relation method, there are two theories. There's theory X, people who hate work avoid work. Simple, right? And theory Y, those who work in the correct and great circumstances and who like to work find great satisfaction at work. Obviously, coming into work during chemo and really hard times, Grant showed his staff through mentorship that he had great satisfaction in work. Some things that can go into motivating are the motivation factors. Your staff might feel motivated when they are faced with achievement and opportunities for advancement. As Chef Grant Aschitz looked to his employees, those who had worked hard became his sous chefs, and he really looked to them when he was not around. They helped to run the restaurant while he was ill, and to this day, they still do the majority of the tasting for him when he's coming up with new recipes. He really gave opportunities for advancement to a lot of his employees day to day by having them help him come up with the recipes. He often has brainstorming after each shift with his staff. He'll think of something he wants to put on the menu, and the next day he puts it up on a poster to remind them what they're looking to achieve. He'll put up the ideas for the new dishes and give the staff for the ability to expand on ways to execute this new dish. This gives the staff the ability to have movement and not to stay complacent or bored. Also makes them feel as if they're learning and advancing on ways to create the menu. Something not really mentioned in our book, but that I think is really important, is to lead by example. Grant Aschitz really is a leader by example. Somebody who's able to come in to work during chemo is somebody who really, really wants to be there. Now, I know that this is not normal, but he really does feel his cooks as his family. He came to work whether he was in pain, using severe painkillers in his mouth, when his tongue was so swollen that he couldn't eat, and when he was feeling ill. He even worked 20-hour days during his chemo. He thought of it as, if he lost his work, he'd lose the fight. Now in remission, somebody who went through that and really kept their staff on board is somebody who is a huge role model to his staff, one way to really motivate your kitchen. Grant Aschitz was really lucky to have worked for Thomas Keller. He really looked up to him as a really great leader who taught him how to be the chef he is today. Once in the kitchen, Thomas Keller came up to Grant and told him he wanted to send him to El Bulli to see the world of molecular gastronomy. He told him he thought of him as a thinker and as an inventor. This showed him that his chef looked to him and had thought that he would have the ability and the opportunity to grow and advance. Learning from Thomas Keller and other chefs in his world taught him how to be a great chef. Really important to be able to motivate your staff.